It's Monday, April 25th, and this is Drive Check, a Cardfight Vanguard podcast. Oh, I'm in a really bad mood tonight.
Why is that, Will?
Oh, it's just I had like a really fun weekend hanging out with a friend like all weekend long, and then today it was just like back to work, and like I don't have that many friends to hang out with around here. I see Joe like time to time, but he works at the baseball games, so now that it's baseball season, I'm not gonna even see him that much.
Oh,
so
God.
It's like that downer after having like a really good time all weekend long.
Yeah, I feel you.
I know Cole had a lot of fun this weekend. Where'd you go?
Went to girlfriend's college to a Hoodie Allen concert.
Oh, I love Hoodie Allen. I'm so jealous.
It was okay.
Probably not your
Don't ruin this for Will.
I mean, some people like Hoodie, some people don't like Hoodie, but I do. I enjoy his music, his style.
I enjoy.
I've
like
never heard of him.
You've never heard of Hoodie Allen?
Now I have that I've looked him up. Never heard of him though.
What's it? No Interruption is probably his best one.
Well, yeah, that's
and then
it's a classic.
At first I heard Woody Allen and I was really confused because Woody Allen isn't a musician.
That you know of.
No, he's definitely just an actor.
No, Woody Allen plays clarinet or something weird.
But does he like perform clarinet?
I believe he has actually.
Oh man! All right,
like Steve Martin and banjo.
Woody Allen concert. Let's go.
No, I don't need to be involved in that. Oh, so Cole, I guess if you were traveling, you didn't get a chance to play any Vanguard, did you?
I did not. No, I wish I had.
Ooh.
And I didn't because my friend from out of town who was visiting is not yet a Vanguard player. Have not converted him yet. And we were kind of busy all day Saturday doing sightseeing around DC and stuff, so I didn't go to Vanguard League. So Jack, you're our only hope.
I did play Vanguard quite a bit, actually.
Nice. Which deck did you practice?
I got to play all three this week. I had enough games to where I could play at least like 2 or 3 games with each deck. So
did you go to a shop?
Fun. Yeah, I just played with like a couple of friends. I had a friend in from out of town that I played with. Well, I was supposed to play with him actually, and he didn't come, and he crushed my dreams. But other than that, I got to play. God, I just love that.
Wait, you played God
deck? It's so much fun.
God actually came to Earth and played Vanguard with you? That is so
funny.
Cool.
I just like always forget how much fun that Spike Brothers deck is, and then I combo off with it, and it just destroys face, and I'm just like, oh, so much fun.
So I just wanted to mention that here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia, or DMV area, as we call it, you laugh all you want. That's what it is. They have an annual series of like Vanguard and Buddy Fight and different competitions called the Dynasty Cup. So they had that April 16th. So about a week ago, and a couple of the players I know from the shop that I usually go to actually took first place. It was a team Dynasty Cup this time around. So they do like individual and they do team. So this time was team SSG were the ones who won. Second place was Team Vongula, which I find hilarious. Or Vongula Gem was the name of the second place team. They all got like custom mats that represent the Dynasty Cup series. And there's an actual like trophy cup that they get for the year. So that's something cool that's really, around here. I don't know if other parts of the country have structured competitions like that are not like the official Bushiroad competitions. But I definitely like seeing it because I know it's like player organized and everybody really gets into it and has a lot of fun in the competition. I think they had up to 200 people competing. So, and I think some people from New York and Pennsylvania actually come down to also participate. So, anything else that happened? Any exciting play stories or anything like that?
I just wanted to know, do you know what decks the winning team was playing? Do you know what the decks they had were?
Well, we can look into it, and if we figure that out, we can talk about that next week.
Okay.
So for my errata for this week, I had two things. One, Jack was right, and Token Rambo is actually considered to be a clan, but they're not. They're not from Cray. They don't have a nation, right? So
It's because it's product placement. That's why.
Yeah, that put them in Weiss Schwartz and leave them out of our beautiful Vanguard world. But
I mean, the deck is fun. Like, I've played around with it. It's a fun concept.
So what 4 words would you use to describe Token Rambo?
Video game sword people.
I've never even heard of Token Rambo. Is that really a video game?
It's like an online game that's in Japan is what it's from.
Isn't it a browser game too?
Free to play collectible. Okay, here we go. Token Rambo is a free to play collectible card browser video game.
Oh,
Available only in Japan. And they are coming out with an anime for it, I think. So
it's basically Take My Money.
it's a Flash player game.
No. So yeah, it's Farmville with swords and samurai. But Jack was wrong and I think a lot of people have this common misbelief just because of that, as I've said, weird relationship of Singapore and Cardfight Vanguard. But Cardfight Vanguard is not from Singapore. It is absolutely from Japan. The reason that I think a lot of people get confused is that the first English cards were made for Singapore. They were not made for the United States or Britain or the English-speaking world. They were specifically for a Singapore release. And the English cards that we received were descendants from the ones that were made from Singapore. So I give you partial credit because the first English release was in Singapore. But the game did not originate from Singapore. The game originated in Japan.
All right. So far, I'm what is that? 1.5 down.
I'm not even keeping score. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, you've done an errata every week, so I'm sure
we always get something wrong. It's the charm of our program that we continually make mistakes.
Yep.
Oh, but do you have a news alert for us, Jack?
Okay, so the first card from GBT07, Glorious Bravery of Radiant Sword, was released. It is basically, it's the first Gold Paladin card we've seen from the new set. It's the first card we've seen from the new set. It's the return of Quintet Walls. So it's a Quintet Wall. When you call it from your hand, counterblast 1, call the top 5 cards from your deck into the Guardian Circle. But this one, because of the interaction you have with some of your other Gold Paladin units that have been released recently, they call units from the top of your deck into the Guardian Circle during your opponent's turn. When this one is called into the Guardian Circle, you can discard a card from your hand. You add the Quintet Wall back to your hand, and then you call the top card of your deck into the Guardian Circle, and it gets plus 5,000 shield.
So I'm a little confused by one of the first things you said.
Yes.
What is the action that triggers the Quintet Wall from this card?
When you call it to the Guardian Circle from your hand.
So when you use it to guard?
Yes.
It then calls 5 more cards from the top of your deck. But
yes.
instead of going into the Guardian Circle, they go into your hand?
No, they go into your Guardian Circle.
Then what was that bit about cards going into your hand instead of the Guardian Circle?
So one of the units we'll be talking about later is Sunrise Ray Knight Gurgwit. And his kind of what's cool about him is he's like one of the only units in Vanguard with a defensive skill, and that skill is Generation Break 2, Counterblast 1, and Soul Blast 1. At the beginning of the guard step of the battle that this unit is being attacked, you can pay the cost. If you do, you look at 4 cards from the top of your deck, and you choose one of them and call it to the Guardian Circle.
Okay.
So
this
when you
card's
call,
just a plain quintet wall, and you threw in all that other stuff to confuse people.
no, that stuff is all written on the card. It's when you call it. It's when you call it from your deck to the Guardian Circle. You discard a card from your hand, and then you can add the quintet wall back to your hand, and then you check the top card of your deck and you put it in Guardian Circle, and that unit gets plus 5,000 power.
So it's when this card is used with Gurgwit. I'm never going to be able to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Gurgwit.
So when this card is used with Gurgwit, that skill hack activates, or you can just use it from your hand as a regular quintet wall.
Without Gurgwit.
Yes.
I think it's going to be Gurgwit. Unless we want to do the French pronunciation
Gurgwit.
of Gurgwit.
Gurgwit. In my opinion, this card is like not good, and you should just run perfect guards instead. Like, because you're not gaining hand advantage from anything. You're still losing hand advantage. I mean, sure, it tutors you it tutors you a Sentinel Shield from your deck, but you don't gain any hand advantage from it. And the Gold Paladin deck already has problems like with decking out pretty quickly as it is, so I don't think it's worth running as of now. We don't know like what else we're going to see. Like, this might be good in like the Legion decks, for example. Like if you run a combination of Gurgwit with a Legion, that might be kind of cool because you can like choose what goes back in your deck, and it's like if we get a new Legion with the new set, that might be a really cool combo.
So
other than that,
what does it tutors you mean?
Tutor means you search for, basically. It means you get a card.
So it gives you the enhanced possibility of actually grabbing a perfect guard. As we've discussed before, you said perfect guard.
I said perfect guard on accident. I meant
okay.
quintet shield. Yeah, it's confusing, but it's not a perfect card.
Oh, we will keep sorting out the mysteries of the Gold Paladins as time goes on because they're always popular.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's continue on with our discussion of Gold Paladins because the talk of the town lately has been the Start Deck, which is the Sunrise Diner and Pancake House, I believe is the name of the Start Deck.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yep. That's exactly what it is.
What is the actual name?
Start Deck 2, Night of the Sun, I believe is what it's called.
Night of the Sun? That's an oxymoron.
Knight of the
Knight of the Sun. This is an audio podcast, so we have to pronounce the K every time we say it.
Yes, absolutely.
Knight of the Sun.
And what is the box art?
It is, I believe the advertised box art was Gurgwit, and the I forget what the character's name that plays the Gold Paladin.
Xion.
No, Xion plays Royal Paladins.
Oh,
it's Taiyu Asukawa.
So it's Taiyu and Gurgwit, I think, was the advertisement art, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
Cole, did you happen to pick any of these up? Is there like one of those things where it's like clear and you can see a card like into the deck?
See a card into the.
Like there's a
like
window, the window.
No, they have
Yeah.
a picture of the
window.
box online, and it's that little kid with the puffy vest.
It's the kid and Gurgwit. Gurgwit.
Gurgwit.
Yeah, so that's the little kid that was part of, like, he first came into the card shop and he was like, I want to learn how to play Vanguard. And then Chrono Shindo taught him how to play Vanguard. And then the next time we saw him, he had joined United Sanctuary and was like super brainwashed and evil and like, winning is the only option. And if you don't win, you're weak. Right?
Oh, God.
That's that same kid, right?
Spoilers. God.
Oh, would you stop?
I'm not sure. I didn't watch the first season of Vanguard G. I just caught up with Gears Crisis, and I'm watching the new one now.
I recommend the first season because It's kind of hard to understand a lot of what's going on in Gears Crisis if you're not watching the first season of Vanguard.
It's basically just card games. It's okay. I can
No,
figure it
it's
out.
you got to understand the depend card and where the depend cards come from and how they pull people from Cray and all those important things.
It's okay. I'll figure it out.
All right, you guys need to talk about the start deck.
Ooh.
So obviously our key card here is Sunrise Ray Knight Gurgui.
Gurgui? Yeah. Yeah, this card, we did get this card released in G Set 3, but this is a reprint with an alternative art. I think this art is better, but like that's up to your opinion. But just because normally what happens when a clan is announced that it's getting some support in an upcoming set, people will go on to eBay and all the websites that they buy cards on, and they buy out everything of notability, like anything good from that clan, and then try and resell it at an unreasonable price. So this didn't happen with Gurgwit because the start deck was coming out with a reprint of Gurgwit and with a reprint of a couple of other cards. The crit trigger that comes in the deck, the Flame of Victory, was like a $2 to $3 critical trigger for a common, which is just ridiculous. So that got reprinted. So it came with a couple of good reprints, and it kind of leveled out the market a bit. Like there's still some cards going up in price now, but it leveled it out a bit.
All right, so I'm reading the text of Gurgui. He has two abilities. One is the GB2, which is the defensive skill. When he's attacked, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, call one to the guard circle as rested, and then shuffle your deck. So that basically lets you grab a shield from your deck if you need it. And then when he is strided, you can counterblast 1, look at the 4 top cards of your deck, search for 1, and put it onto your rear guard and shuffle, and that card that gets called out gets plus 2,000. So he has 1 attack ability and 1 defense ability. The attack ability does not require any generation break. So, I guess it does because he has to be strided, and he can call out 1 card from the deck. But the main, which we haven't talked about, the main mechanic of Gold Paladins is the concept that they are calling cards from the deck to the rearguard circles. The Vanguard calls his buddies, and they all come to support him.
And then they chain up pretty heavily. They chain.
Yeah, and as they come out of the deck onto the rearguard circles, they get power boosts.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of cards that when you call them to the rearguard circle, they call more cards, and it's just yeah. That's just really what the Gold Paladin deck likes to do. You fill up a field without having to lose any hand advantage, which is like a really cool thing that they can do.
So you get 2 Gurgui in the start deck. And we actually didn't, we kind of skipped over what the definition of a start deck is versus a trial deck. So, Cole, what did we come up with for that?
I was looking into it. In Japan, this deck is actually released as a trial deck, which I thought was a little weird. And in the US, it's actually a starter deck. And looking at it, comparing it to the Grand Blue that I got a couple weeks ago, there are only 2 cards that are hollow in the entire set. You get the same amount of cards, practically the same trigger lineup as well. And most of the cards have the same ability. Like there's a couple that have when they intercept, they get a plus 10k shield, and there's basically a Gold Paladin version of Tommy the Ghosty Brothers, which we can go over later. But it's also a lot cheaper than a trial deck. Trial decks are like usually, depending on where you go, I think they're like $15 to $20. And this start deck was only 10 to 12. So
all right, so it's probably about half price than a usual trial deck. So, and I think the way they advertise it is that it is supposed to be for the beginner player, for somebody even who has never played any trading card game before. So it's kind of designed, I guess, to be an easier to play, to get into the Vanguard concept versus, say, like a Messiah's deck, which I still haven't figured out.
I was thinking that, but then I was looking at the Grand Blue trial decks, and it's actually pretty similar. Maybe the Grand Blue trial deck was just a lot easier to play with.
Well, I think by mechanic, right? Because Grand Blue is still a somewhat difficult mechanic to understand, of the going into the drop zone and coming out of the drop zone. And, if
That's
I
true.
pick somebody to hollow, then, what does that mean? And how, when should I hollow somebody? When should I not hollow somebody? I think.
Are they just going by the keywords that they're introducing? Because this deck introduced the Unite ability.
But I think Unite is actually easier to understand than hollow.
Oh yeah, for sure it is.
So that's part of it too. So what does Unite do? That because hollow, if somebody hasn't listened to our previous episode, when you decide to hollow a Grand Blue card, it basically means at the end of your turn you put it into your drop zone, your discard pile.
Yeah, and then so what Unite does, it's basically Unite keywords abilities are activated if you have called 2 units in a turn. So that means either you called during your opponent's turn, your Unite abilities activate if you called 2 or more units to the Guardian circle, and then on your turn it's just 2 or more units to the rear guard circle. And then also something I wanted to mention about like beginners and whatnot. The Grand Blue trial deck, first of all, Grand Blue is just more of like a combo oriented kind of like deck to play. It's a little more advanced to play. And then another thing, the Gold Paladins, it's just like calling and gaining power and beating down your opponent. It's a very simple deck to play. It's great for beginners. And the stride that comes in the deck, actually, it tells like you how strides work. So like on the card it says this unit cannot be in your main deck, and on the card it says when this unit strides, it gains the power and name of your heart. At the end of the turn, return it face up to the G zone. So it actually says all of that on the card. So it definitely helps with beginners to kind of teach them how the stride mechanic works.
Some of the trial deck strides say that too.
Well, does the Grand Blue one? Because I know we haven't. I don't think we've had it in a while. Is what I
have
thought.
It right here. It does.
It says
does.
when it says this
When
unit
this
cannot be in your main deck.
It gains. Yes, this card cannot be in your main deck, and it also has that.
Yeah.
Then ignore completely everything I just said, and I'm completely wrong.
So let's go back to the word unite and what unite means. So it activates if you have called 2 units during your turn. Now, can that be a regular call, like I have a rearguard circle open, so I call somebody to the rearguard circle, or does it have to be one of the Gold Paladin special calls?
No, it's just calling units. So you can just call it from your hand, and you get the Unite ability.
So that's just a standard call. It does not have to be one of the Gold Paladin ability calls. And then what happens if you have called 2 units? What happens when Unite activates?
It just depends on what the card says. Like their Unite abilities will activate. Like there's a grade 1 in the deck that is Generation Break 1 Unite. When you call this card, I think it's like it gets like plus 2k, and it's a 7k card, so it becomes a 9k booster if you called 2 units in that turn, I think is what it says.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the abilities just activate based on whether or not you called 2 units that turn.
Okay, so as we're going through the cards, we'll look for any that say Unite and then mention what their Unite ability may be. So let's go back to deck composition. It is less expensive, and the recommendation is to get at least 2 that would give you the combination of the 2 together would give you a viable deck to play with. But we had a discussion previously this week because somebody we know bought 4 copies of it, and the question was whether he needed to get rid of 2 extra copies. but there's a consideration that this deck comes with a Golden Dragon Scourge Point Dragon promo card, and it only comes with one of those. And that is a grade 4 stride. So if you want to have 4 Golden Dragon Scourge Point Dragons, then you would actually need to buy 4 copies of this start deck. But then the question is Golden Dragon Scourge Point Dragon worth the $40?
Extra $20. Well, also the thing is, the main reason you want to buy 2 is so you have 4 Gurgwit, because each deck only comes with 2, and that's like the best unit that comes in the deck. But one of them is hollow, one of them is common. So like some people that have OCD or whatever, if they have 2 trial decks, they're gonna have two triple rare Gurgwit, and they're gonna have 2 common Gurgwit, and that might like annoy some people or whatever. I don't really care personally. So the thing with buying 4 is you have 4 hollow copies of your Gurgwit. You have and you'd have 4 Scourge Point Dragons. Now Scourge Point Dragon, now the trial deck was just, or the start deck, my bad, was just released, so we don't really have like set prices for anything right now. I don't even know if I've seen the promo version of Scourge Point online anywhere. But the rare version that came in the I forget what Fighters Collection it came out.
It
in
was
Fighters Collection.
Double rare actually from Fighters Collection 2015.
Okay, well that is like a $4 to $5 card right now. So
okay.
And then so you're right now the triple rare Gurgwits from the deck itself is about a $4 to $5 card. So that in and of itself kind of pays for your deck. If you really wanted to just get 2 of them, you could just buy, because the thing is, I don't know if it was worth it to run 4 Gurgwits before when we had an 8-card G-Zone, but now that we're getting up to a 16-card G-Zone in May, it might be worth it to run 4 Scourge Point Dragons. That just all comes with testing. You'll be able to find that out. But it's definitely a really powerful stride.
So yes, the stride of Scourge Point Dragon, which we can start from looking at these individual cards from the stride cards. The ability is on stride, so it's basically when you actually put the card down onto the Vanguard circle. When your unit is placed on a rearguard circle from your deck, that unit and this unit get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So if you use this card to stride Gurgwit, and then have Gurgwit use his ability to call somebody to a rearguard circle, immediately that called card gets plus 5,000 power, and Scourge Point Dragon gets plus 5,000 power. And knowing the Gold Paladins, you will have other opportunities during your turn to call even more cards to your rearguard circle from your deck. They can't be called from your hand. They have to be called from your deck, so they have to be ability calls. Every time you do that, Scourge Point Dragon gets an additional 5,000 power. So that's pretty sweet. Because you can get, if you had completely blank rearguard circles, or if you have an ability that lets you retire a card and call a new card onto that rearguard circle, that's another 25,000 power on top of Scourge Point's 15,000. So that's pretty OP.
Yeah, it's a really good stride. Like, especially for being just a double rare in a Fighters Collection, it's a really powerful stride, and that's why it's like $5. Like a lot of the double rares that come out in Fighters Collection end up being like less than $1 or $1 or $2, and this is a $5 double rare that came out in a Fighters Collection, which means it doesn't really mean that it's a powerful card, but this card is a very powerful card, and I think it just only gets better with more units that call units from the deck. It can only get better. Like, there's no way that this card can really get worse.
All right, and our other stride is Golden Dragon Ray Breath Dragon, because no dragon should only be called dragon once.
A dragon once.
And Cole, do you want to read Golden Dragon Ray Breath's Dragon's ability? And you get 2 of these in the start deck, so you'll have 4 if you buy 2 of the start deck.
Yes, it's got a continuous ability, Unite, when it's on the Vanguard circle, obviously. And again, the Unite is if you've called 2 or more active cards to the rear guard, or the G guard or G zone. This turn it gets the Unite ability, and this card gets 5,000 power for when it's united, and then all the rear guards in the front row get 2,000 power.
So it has the Unite keyword.
Mhm.
So every Unite, yes. So every time you have the Unite keyword, that gets activated if you've called 2 or more cards to a rear guard circle or the Guardian circle, and then it gets a power boost. It's pretty decent because you're going to have other Unite cards in this deck. So that's a nice power up for Ray Breath Dragon.
Yeah, it's a very decent stride, especially for a trial or a start deck. That's confusing. Why did we have to separate the two? It's a very decent first stride to play because it doesn't require like unflipping or any counterblast. It's just it gets a decent effect for no cost.
Okay, so what are our other grade 3s? We have Divinity Lancer Dragon and Blade Cross Lion. Are either one of them notable in any way?
I don't believe. Well, the Blade Cross Lion is a really interesting and like diverse card, and it can do almost anything. The other one, it's just a 13k attacker or a 14k attacker. It's not nothing special really.
Is it vanilla?
It's not vanilla. It's just it's an 11k grade 3, and it's when it's on the Vanguard or the rear guard, unite, and then when this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 3,000 power. So if you have called 2 units during that turn, it gets plus 3,000 power when it attacks a Vanguard.
Oh, so yeah, that is pretty plain.
Yeah.
Most likely, if you were combining the 2 decks, you would get rid of Divinity Lancer Dragon. To give space for the Gurguit.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, because you typically only want about 8 grade 3s in any deck.
8, 7. Depending on the deck, you run anywhere from 8 is the general rule. Some faster decks run like 4 or 6, and then like then you have Glendios, which is a grade 3 heavy deck and runs like 14, 15 grade 3s.
Yeah,
but the general rule of thumb, the general rule of thumb, well, in my Ezel deck I have right now, I run 7 grade 3s. So it's 7 or 8 is the general rule of thumb.
Yeah. So you'd be getting rid of those Divinity Lancer Dragons anyways.
Yes.
So you'd be having Gurguits and Blade Cross Lions. And,
yes, for sure.
It is notable that the Gold Paladins do have a tendency to have a lot of lions. Where Royal Paladins tend to have a lot of dogs.
Lions are cooler. Just all I'm going to say.
But Blade Cross Lion does not have a Unite keyword.
No, it does not. But it does. Cole, do you want to read this one?
Yeah. So the first ability is a GB1 ability. When this unit attacks Vanguard, it gets plus 6,000 until the end of the battle. And then
so that.
Yeah,
that right there is already better than your other. I already forgot the name because of how bad it is. The other grade 3 that comes in the start deck, that's only a 14k attacker. This is a 16k attacker, and yeah, this one's Generation Break 1. But most of the time, when you're on grade 3, you're already gonna have Stridden anyway that turn, so it's not a big deal.
And then it's got another ability. Counter Blast 2. When this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle, you pay the cost. If you do, look at the top 4 cards from the top of your deck. Search for up to 1 card from among them and call it to the rear guard, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's a pretty basic Gold Paladin.
No, I thought because there was another grade 3 that was revealed for was it a promo for GBT07 or it was a card in GBT07? It was I forget what the name of it is, but it was a grade 3 that you can boost with it and you can intercept with it. So it was a really diverse card, and I thought that's what that card was, but I guess not. So I'm disappointed now.
There's a grade 2 that was already been released.
Yeah. I forget. I'm gonna try and find it because it was really interesting.
The Thin Sun Marcia.
Well, we don't need to get confusing about cards from sets that are not available yet. So
you're right. You're right.
We can focus on this, and when those ones come out, we'll talk about those ones.
Okay.
All right. So grade 2s. Anything exciting about that? I kind of saw that Knight of Dawnlight Yago is vanilla. 10K
Yeah.
grade 2.
10K vanillas, some decks run them still because it's really good to have, if you're on a 10K Vanguard and your opponent has 9K rear guards with no boosters, they can't hit your Vanguard unless they have a booster or unless they hit a trigger. So that, like, right there is really cool. Other than that, they don't really have much utility.
Any of the other grade 2s that look exciting?
There is one Holy Mage Elio, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a Counterblast 1 and put this unit into the soul. When this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you pay the cost. If you do, you look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and you search for one and call it to an open rear guard. So in most cases, when a card says open rear guard, you kind of get sad because it makes the card worse. But with this, you put it into your soul, so it opens up a rear guard circle for you. So the open rear guard isn't really... It's still not as good, but it's not as big of a deal as it would be, because a lot of the time when you're calling rear guards from your deck, you're kind of hoping to get an extra attack or two in, and this card lets you do that because it returns to your soul. There was another Gold Paladin grade 2 that had like this exact effect word for word. I believe it was a Liberator card.
Oh, so just from a different era.
Yeah, but it did. So yeah, and I think this art's a lot better than that card was too.
Better art.
So, yeah.
So I wanted to point out something, especially for people who are newer to Vanguard, because we've come across 2 abilities that work slightly differently, and it's important to understand how they're written on the cards. And later on, I'm sure we'll cover in detail how abilities work for our like weekly definitions and stuff. But just because there are 2 that show up in this deck and people are going to want to play this deck, I wanted to point out one, which you'll notice is on Ray Breath Dragon, is a continuous ability. And that means that it's always happening so long as this card is in play. So that's why with Ray Breath Dragon, he's always getting plus 5,000 every time a rear guard gets called and put onto a rear guard circle. It's continuous throughout your turn that can happen. With Elio and with some of the other cards there, you'll have auto abilities. Auto means that it only happens if a particular circumstance is met, and it happens in that moment. So with Elio, it's when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard. That's what triggers the auto ability. So you can't think of it as happening throughout the turn, but it happens at that specific point in time. So I know a lot of people get confused by the different types of abilities that have those leading words on them. So hopefully that will help a little bit when people are trying to learn how to play. All right, so we have our grade 1s.
There's another ability as well, too. The act.
Yeah, but we haven't seen it in this deck yet. Is it on any of the cards?
Have we? It is on them. I don't know if it's on the grade 2s yet.
Right.
Nope, not yet. Sorry. Premature.
Cool.
I know. Amateur.
No, I just want to keep talking about this deck to explain this deck to people without confusing them with too much information about other things that have happened out there. Yeah, I'm not seeing the activated abilities.
Yeah, and I mean we'll get to later in the podcast. We'll get to other cards that you can buy separately that go pretty well with this deck. Yeah.
All right. So any grade 1s that we should be excited for? So actually, if you were going to get rid of grade 2s, which grade 2 would you probably drop?
In my opinion, I would drop Night of Evening Glow Kapoor because it's just an 8K grade 2, which is already pretty bad because you just want to be at 9 or 10K really if you can, unless it's like a really good ability. But this is just Generation Break 1. When you intercept, you get plus 10K shield. So it's a 15K intercept. But especially with G Guardians coming out and with Perfect Guards, you don't really need that card. So I would definitely drop that one.
A lot of the trial decks and start decks are including a card that has this similar ability, and I think overriding for most of them, it's going to be drop this card. That there's better ways to block damage than have an interceptor that has a power boost but does not have attack ability.
Another thing that I find really weird about this deck, it only has, unless I'm mistaken, it only has 10 grade 2s in it. Am I wrong? Like, am I missing something? Or
you are correct. It only has 10.
Which is really strange because generally you want to run 11 or 12 grade 2s. So, like, 10 is just a really funky number, I think, for beginners, especially to see, because it just kind of, like, teaches bad deck building, in my opinion, at least. Because generally, so, like, yeah, I would definitely drop, first I would drop Kapoor, and then I'd start to drop your 10k attackers, because while 10k attackers are good, you can run like 1 or 2 of them and you'd be okay. You don't need 4 of them.
So the 10k is Knight of Dawnlight Yago?
Yeah.
All right. So, this is a start deck that's supposed to be tuned for beginning players, so that may be the reason why it's a little shifted away from what we would normally, how we would normally look at a deck.
A deck. Yeah, that's true. It's just generally when you have like that many grade 2s, you can struggle having a grade 2 in your hand when you need to ride or when you need good rear guards. And I think the deck probably has like 1 more grade 1 than it needs in order to fill like spaces.
So
and
our
it should
grade
have been
ones?
another grade.
What looks good in the grade 1s?
I know there's another 8K. There's another vanilla, which is Knight of Morning Shadow Camarcus, which is just an 8K vanilla. Dawning Knight Gorbadik, which is your stride fodder. The term stride fodder means that when you can discard this card as the cost for striding a unit from your G zone. When you do, it gets +2 grade. So you're paying the cost for stride with a grade 1 instead of having to discard a grade 3.
Okay, that right there explains how this is a start deck, because none of the trial decks come with a stride fodder.
Yeah.
So that immediately makes this deck so much easier to play rather than paying, $5 a piece for your...
Yeah, and especially a lot of the stride, like this card, before it was announced that it was getting a reprint in the starter deck, it was already starting to go up. It was like $2, $1.50, and then like right before the start deck revealed that this was getting a reprint, it was at like $3.50, $4. So it was only going to go up. Stride fodders are just always expensive cards for whatever. I mean, you play them generally in every deck, so I mean that's why. And they're always like, I think, short printed rares. I think they're short printed. I'm not positive on that. So, but
what
this
does short printed mean?
It means that Bushiroad wants you to buy more packs, so they put the rares in less packs.
Fewer. Okay.
But what this card does, besides being a stride fodder, you choose a grade 3 card from your hand. It's auto. Choose a grade 3 card from your hand and reveal it. When this unit is placed on the rear guard from your hand, you can pay the cost. If you do, you search your deck for a grade 3 call with Gurgwit in its card name, and you show it to your opponent and add it to your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So basically what this does, especially if you only have one start deck, if you have one of the other 2 grade 3s in your hand and you have a stride fodder, you can call the stride fodder in order to search for Gurgwit, which is the grade 3 you want to ride. That's the grade 3 you want to ride most of the time. So it just adds consistency to the deck, and it's a really good card. So that's a great reprint, and you would definitely run 4 of that in any Gurgwit deck.
Which is great because this deck gives you 4.
I was just going to say, how many does it give you in the deck?
It gives you 4.
I believe that ability is exactly the same as Destiny Dealer.
Yeah,
it's
generally the same for each clan.
Yeah. So Destiny Dealer allows you to search for a Messiah.
Yeah, exactly.
So this card lets you search for a Gurgwit.
And there's like Laurel Knight. There's Laurel Knight Sisylis, I believe, for Royal Paladins that let you search Altmile. There's Lava Flow Dragon that lets you search for Blade Master. every clan, I think, has one. I'm not positive on that. But most clans have one where you call it and then you search for the grade 3. That's like supposed to be the main card of the deck.
Or of that sub-clan.
Of that sub-clan, yeah.
But they don't have it for every sub-clan. So that's
No.
Dawning Knight Gorboduk. Yeah,
Gorbaduc,
all the
yes.
Gold Paladins are French. That's just so the Link Jokers came. They bound away all of the British Royal Paladins, and the French Gold Paladins were left to save the day.
They also took away the French Kagero too.
Oh, is Kagero? Yeah, because they're Nouvelle
Le
Vague.
Express.
Yeah.
Le Express.
There's more to this game than we've thought. All right, so do they have a dog? No.
They do.
Is
I think.
Kreskel a
Isn't
dog?
Kreskel a dog? I believe it is.
It's a high beast. It definitely looks like a dog.
Yeah, if it says high beast, that means dog.
Well, so does the lion. Blade Cross Lion says high beast as well.
Will.
It kinda
Already saying
looks
things
like
wrong.
a dog. Well, one of the Royal Paladin cards is a high beast tamer. So come on,
Yeah,
give me a break.
Kane. I believe it's a Kane.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything else special about the grade 1s?
They do give you perfect guards, and they give you generic perfect guards, which are just when you call it from your choose a card from your hand and discard it. When this unit is placed in the Guardian Circle, choose a unit that is being attacked, and it can't be hit until the end of the battle. That word unit is important.
Yeah, so that's the traditional perfect guard.
Yes, exactly. Which is good because it doesn't mention that it has to be called from your hand, like the G perfect guards do, where if you have another copy, you unflip a damage. With this perfect guard, you can call it off of the top 4 cards of your deck with Gurgwit, and then you get a perfect guard, and then you can use the perfect guard skill to perfect shield yourself with Gurgwit's ability.
Nice.
So you can't. That's something you can't do with the G perfect guards.
And the perfect guard, her name is Holy Mage Candace.
Yep.
You only get 2 in the trial deck, so that's another reason why you'd want to combine 2 trial decks so you have 4 perfect guards. You always
definitely want 4
to
perfect
have
guards.
4 perfect guards. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then so definitely want to have 4 perfect guards.
Our forerunner is Knight of Early Dawn Cole. So that's why this is Cole's favorite deck. And he, besides having the Forerunner skill, he has a GB1, Generation Break 1 skill. He's got the Unite keyword. And the cost is... Wow, it's kind of confusing. So you can't use the ability unless you have called 2 or more units to a rearguard circle. Put this unit into your soul, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, search for up to 1 card from among them, which basically means take any of one of the 3 cards, call it to a rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and that unit gets power plus 2,000 until the end of the...
That's actually a really good starter.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's one of the starters you'd run before in Gold Paladins was Spring Breeze Messenger, and it had the same skill. It wasn't Generation Break 1, and instead of having the Unite skill you had to meet in order to call the unit, you had to hit the attack that unit boosted. And whenever you have on-hit effects, they're generally just not as good as effects you get without having to hit.
Yeah, because if somebody pulls out a perfect guard, you have completely lost that ability.
Exactly, and people would generally just want to guard your Vanguard all the time.
There's also the Bluish Flame starter is actually pretty good too. So
is this the Bluish Flame start deck?
No, but I mean
harsh.
It doesn't work. Oh, I guess it does say Liberators. Never mind. But
yeah, Liberators. Eventually, if we do a Gold Paladin clan review, which I'm sure we'll do when we get set 7, Liberators are just kind of their own thing, and like they're good. It's just you can't really mix Liberators with the rest of the Gold Paladin clan, which is kind of sad because some of the art on those Liberators is just so fantastic, and it's just really its own deck.
All right, so we do have a standard set, basically 4 of each of the triggers. There's a critical trigger, Flame of Victory, which has an activated ability. So finally, Cole, tell us, what is an activated ability?
Okay, so you get to choose whether that ability activates or not, basically. So with the green auto, the requirements have to be met, but activate, I believe you can use it on either player's turn. Am I correct, or is it just on your turn?
I think it depends on the card.
Okay.
I think it depends on the card, because I think Gurgwitz is in... I'm not sure, though.
Because this guy's Flame of Victory, you put it into your soul, and then choose up to 1 of your Gold Paladin, and that unit gains plus 3,000 until the end of the turn.
So, as I mentioned earlier, this was like a $2 to $3, like a $3 to $4 critical trigger before it got this reprint. So that's a really good reprint for Gold Paladin, because that's like the best critical trigger in the deck. You play that in the clan. You play this critical trigger in every single deck that Gold Paladins play. I think even in Liberators, most builds play this critical trigger because it's just so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, most Gold Paladin decks play this critical trigger because it's just so good. And some of the cards outside of the start deck that we'll be talking about later, the Gold Paladins are a very Soul Blast heavy clan, and just putting this into your soul to give you an extra unit to Soul Blast is really good too.
All right, yeah, we haven't seen any Soul Blasts in this particular deck.
No, but there will be a couple later on that I'll mention.
And just to make it a little clearer, the difference between an auto ability versus an activated ability, there are some auto abilities that, if the criteria are met, you have to conduct them. Now, a lot of times they will be clear and they'll say, you may choose to do this, but there are some auto abilities that you must actually take the action. So the one that I'm thinking of was my old friend, CEO Amaterasu, and her auto ability is at the beginning of your main phase, soul charge 1, look at the top card of your deck, and put that card on the top or the bottom of your deck. So you could not choose. You can choose to not do that. At the beginning of your turn, if you had CEO Amaterasu as your Vanguard, you had to soul charge 1. You had to look at the top card of your deck and put that at the top or the bottom of your deck. If that was an activated ability, you could choose not to do that. But because it was auto and the condition was met, you had to do it. So that's the kind of line between auto and activated abilities. But we're not talking about the Oracle think tank folks this week. Someday we'll get around to my beautiful Oracle think tanks. So any other guidance? We've kind of talked about which cards you'd take out. So you'd obviously take out you'd want 8 crits. Everybody wants 8 crits these days. Any other guidance on combining the 2 decks?
Yeah, so because the deck comes with 2 vanilla critical triggers and 2 of the Flame of Victory, you can have an 8 critical deck just by combining the 2 start decks. So you definitely, for the trigger lineup, you definitely want 8 criticals, 4 Flame of Victory, 4 of the other one, 4 draw, and 4 heals. For grade 1s, you definitely want 4 Gorbadik. I think you'd still want 4 Camarcus. You would definitely want 4 Perfect Guards, and then I'd probably run 2 Knight of Red Day Runo. For grade 2s, I would run 4 Holy Mage Elio, 4 Knight of New Sun Catilius, and 3 Knight of Dawnlight Jago. For grade 3s, I'd run 4 Gurgwit and 4 Blade Crossline.
And then 4 of each of the strides that are available that come with this deck.
Well, you only get the 1 stride, so you'd run 4 of it, and then...
Well, unless you buy 4 decks.
Yeah, so if you only buy 2, you'd run 4 Golden Dragon, Raybreath Dragon, and 2 Scourge Point. And then if you buy 4 decks, then you'd run 4 Scourge Point.
or 2 Blizzas or 2.
I
You
think
can't,
Scourge Point is better. I think.
you can't do Madu, can you? No.
You can because Bladecross Lion is a 10K.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I've got extra Madus. If anybody needs one, hit me up.
Ooh.
All right. So, which cards, if you wanted to add some spice to the deck, would you guys? Right. I don't ever play Gold Paladins. I bought the original Gold Paladin trial deck, and I did not like it at all. And I think I gave away most of the cards.
Yeah, you give them to me.
So, so I gave them to Cole. Yeah, old Garamore. What would you guys recommend if you wanted to spice up and add some other cards into the deck? So, Cole, do you have any recommendations?
All right, my recommendations are just play Bluish Flames because that's all I know. I'm looking to see if there are any cards that are specific non-Liberator or non-Bluish Flames right now, and most of them are Liberator, which really sucks. Oh, there is actually Catch Call Liberator. He's a stand trigger. When this unit is placed on the rear guard from your deck, you may pay the cost. The cost is put him at the bottom of your deck. And when you do, I get to check the top 3 cards of your deck. Search for one that's not named Catch Call Liberator and call it to an open rear guard, and then you shuffle your deck. So you shuffle him back into your deck.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's like Lozenge Magus.
Yeah, there's another stand trigger. I forget what the name of it is, but it's Generation Break 1. When you call a unit, so this happens when he's on rear guard circle. You call a unit. When you call a unit from the top of your deck, you give that unit plus 5,000 power. You put the stand trigger back into your deck and shuffle your deck and draw a card. So it's basically like another draw trigger.
That's pretty nice too.
Yeah.
Which card does that?
I'm blanking on the name.
We'll have to look it up for next week. It's not the blank card.
So the thing is, there's a couple of different builds you have as options. So for Gurgwit, you definitely want to run Gurgwit as your main grade 3. You have a couple of choices as your backup grade 3 that aren't included in the start deck. You have any of the Ezel cards, which are really cool. There's Blonde Ezel, there's Platinum Ezel, and there's Ezel Scissors.
Yeah, I never understood Ezel Scissors. That's just
Ezel. It's because it's cutting the binds of Link Joker. That's why it was called.
I thought it was like hairstyles. He was blonde,
no.
He was platinum, and then he got his hair cut.
In the anime, he took the scissors and cut the lock, like the binding rings or whatever, with scissors. Yeah. So that's what he did in the anime. It's still a strange name, but that Ezel Scissor, just any combination of Ezel. There is a really fun combo you can use with another starter, which is called Crimson Lion Cub Criff. If you have 4 Knight of Superior Skills Bumanes and 4 Knight of Elegant Skills Gareth, the Bumanes are 10k vanillas and grade 2s, and the Gareths are 8k vanilla grade 1s. So what Crimson Lion Cub Criff does, when you have Bumanes on your Vanguard and you have Gareth as a rear guard, you put Gareth and Criff into your soul and you search your deck for a Blonde Ezel and ride it. So you can be at grade 3. So you can go first and be at grade 3 when your opponent has, I believe, grade 1. You can be at grade 3.
No, that's
right.
Cool.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can be at grade 3.
Sense. It's just ride acceleration.
Yeah. So that's a really cool combo that I like. Platinum Ezel has a really cool skill where it gives all your rear guards 5k power, but it's a really heavy costed card, so maybe as a one of. And then Platinum Ezel is a really good thing. And the reason you run Ezel is because it gives you access to the Mithril Ezel Stride. When you stride it, you can counterblast 1 and Persona Flip, so you turn a copy of Mithril Ezel face up from your G-Zone. You check the top 5 cards of your deck, you pick one of them, you call it, that unit, so say you call a 10k card, that unit gets plus 10k, and then Mithril Ezel gets plus 10k. So nice. It's a very powerful stride. So that's why you'd run Ezel as a backup, because it helps with your... Oh, also, the stride unlocks all of your rear guards. So it helps with the Link Joker matchup.
Yeah, and don't play that garbage. I'm editing all this out. Nobody needs no Mithril Ezels. Throw that in the trash bin. That card has zero negative value. You actually lose money if you use that card.
It is rising in price. Actually, it's like a $20 card right now.
So what's a Pwile?
Oh, Pwill is a grade 2. So it's Holy Mage Pwill is Generation Break 1. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, if it's boosted, you can counterblast 1 and check the top 3 cards of your deck, and you call 1 to a rear guard. So basically, why this card is cool, you just have to attack a Vanguard. You don't have to hit the attack like a lot of other like superior calling rear guards do. So you just have to attack the Vanguard. You don't actually have to hit. So that makes it a really powerful grade 2 unit.
And is the writing, does it say on attack? How is it written?
Yeah, it's when this unit attacks a Vanguard. So before you actually hit.
Yeah, so it's before the attack actually completes. You can.
So you can't call him. So you can't call a unit over him, because then the attack would just go away. So you'd want to attack with your other rear guard first, then attack with Pwill, and then attack with the Vanguard. You'd call over your other grade 2 rear guard, or your other attacker. That's not Pwill. Another interesting grade 3 is the Spectral Duke Dragon Ride Chain. This ride chain, if you don't know what a ride chain is, basically you just search your deck and you try and ride specific grade 1s, 2s, and 3s to get power boost to your cards. What this one does is it works as early game pressure. So it's a restanding Vanguard. So you'd get 3 drive checks when you ride grade 3 before your opponent gets a chance to stride. So you just want to use early game pressure, and then you attack. And then after you ride Spectral Duke Dragon from the ride chain, you ride Gurgwit and then just start striding. Because you attacked an extra time with your Vanguard the turn before, your opponent's hand will have less cards to guard with, so it just makes the rest of your game a lot easier to play. So that's why that card's cool.
The important thing is that Spectral Duke it's a Vanguard that gets to restand, so it's similar to Kagero in that way.
Yeah.
When it restands and attacks again, you do another drive check, so you get to pull more cards.
You lose twin drive, so you get 1 more drive check, but you still get 3. So you get a triple drive and your opponent and an extra attack in. When before your opponent even strides, your opponent would still be on grade 2. So, like, you'd want to use this if you go first. You want to ride Spectral Duke Dragon first and get that extra attack in. And it's really great for early game pressure. Another grade 3 people run, which I don't understand, is Pelennor. Pelennor is when you call it to your rear guard from your deck, you can ride him on your Vanguard as stand. This card is bad. Please don't run it. Just please don't run it. For whatever reason, it's a $15 card. People love to run it. It's not good. You have so many better options. Ezel is much better. Spectral Duke is much better. Don't run this card.
All right, and who is
don't do it.
Valo?
I'm not sure. There hasn't been like many like tournament reports with Gurgwit now, but originally like the Danvalo was the secondary grade 3 you would run, and it's just basically another rear guard that when your attack hits a Vanguard, you check the top 4 and call a unit to rear guard.
Oh,
this was basically one of those, so you just get an extra amount of those. And then another stride I kind of mentioned earlier is Spirit Cross Dragon is Generation Break 2, Counterblast 2. Is it Generation Break 2 or is it Generation Break 1?
Neither.
Okay, so never mind. So you Counterblast 2, and then you check the top 5 cards of your deck. So you Counterblast 2, Persona Flip. So you flip a copy of Spirit Cross face up. Then you Counterblast 2, you check the top 5 cards of your deck, and for each unit you have face up in your G zone, you call a card to rear guard. So say in my Ezel deck, I strode Ezel the first turn, so I have 2 Ezel face up in my G zone. The next turn I stride Spirit Cross, I use Spirit Cross skill, flip a Spirit Cross up, so I can call 3 units for Counterblast 2. And you get to fill up your field, which is really cool.
And just also to clarify for people, the reason why they are having the grade 4s, the strides, do a Persona Flip it is to limit you from only using those strides twice. Since you can only have 4 copies of any card in your G zone, if you have to persona flip a card, you'll only be able to use that particular card twice.
Yeah, but the thing is, Bushiroad did announce that they're not doing that anymore. That's why they've transitioned from persona flip to flip a stride unit in your G zone face up. So you can use the card 4 times if you wanted to. You just have to unflip 4 other units. So they're kind of doing away with that, but the older kind of strides that we have now that are really powerful still have that ability that they have to pay for.
Like my beautiful Nebula dragon, Big Crunch dragon. All right.
Like you said earlier, it's not a dragon if it doesn't say dragon twice.
Exactly. So anything else about this particular Gold Paladin start deck that you guys want to say?
I believe that's it.
Yeah, I think we recommend it for people who want to learn about Vanguard. This is another deck that should be relatively easy to get and easy to start with. Easy to learn concept. It's not about manipulating your opponent's field. It's not about manipulating your opponent's hand, deck, anything. It's all about managing the power of your own attacks and having strong attacks and strong defense as well, obviously, because Gurguit has those has that defensive ability as well. So if you really are new to TCGs, that is another benefit of this particular start deck, in that you only have to mind what you are doing to yourself. You're not going to be taking any actions on your opponent's field during your turn, so you don't have to worry about understanding how they're playing. You're just really building up those nuclear bomb attacks so that you can hit really, really hard when you do actually make your attacks. Okay, our term of the week is qual, which is a word that I say with a New York accent most of the time. And call comes from basically that concept that your Vanguard is the primary attacker on the field, and then you are calling allies out into the rearguard circles to support your Vanguard and their attacks. And anytime you are taking a card from any location and putting it onto a rearguard circle, that is considered a call. You can call from your hand, you can call from your deck, you can call from the drop zone, and I don't know, is there any that call from the damage zone? Has that happened before?
Angel Feathers do that a lot, but I think that's the only one.
Yeah, that's pretty uncommon.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of clans that call from the bind zone, but that's a pretty advanced effect, and we're not going to get into that right now.
Yeah, binding has not been used very much.
Well, it's starting to be used again more in the Narukami clan, and it's used in a couple of Gear Chronicle cards.
Yeah, I had a deck where I played a bind card from Oracle Think Tank, but it just never. It was too weak to make it worthwhile. But yeah, that is not our term of the week. Our term of the week is call, and it's really that concept of when something moves from one location onto a rearguard circle, you are calling it. Also, if you are moving something to the guard circle, you are calling it to the guard circle. That's something I should mention is with the Unite ability specifically, it says you have to call 2 units. If you're moving a unit from your rear guard to your guardian circle to intercept, that's not considered calling to the guardian circle. So you will need to call more units to your guardian circle to activate the Unite abilities. I just think that's something important to explain. And something that is absolutely critical about calling, which all new players, and even I, as in relatively experienced player, I make this mistake from time to time. You can never call a card that is a higher grade than your current Vanguard. So if you have a grade 1 Vanguard and need to defend, and you only have grade 2s in your hand, you cannot call grade 2s to defend a grade 1 Vanguard. You can only call grade 2s once you have a grade 2 Vanguard. So just be vigilant and don't make that mistake, because your opponent will call you out and make you feel like a fool. Because they're never nice about it, are they? All right. Anything else about calling?
Did we mention that you can superior call above the current grade that you're at?
Yeah, you can do that. You can superior call.
Well, superior call is an ability, and we will probably go in depth on the different types of calls later as we go through different clans and things that actually do focus on superior calling.
Well, yeah. Well, like cards that call that have skills that are like really powerful when they call, like Pelennor specifies that you and your opponent both have to be at a grade 3 to use his skill to ride. So like even if you call him when you're at grade 1, you can't just skip your grade 2 ride and go straight to grade 3. So I think that is pretty important to mention, is like while they can be called, most of them have restrictions that prevent them from using their abilities.
Well, that's when it's a superior call, and well, we won't get too confusing. We'll go in more detail on that down the line.
Okay, I'll have a question for you guys after we're done recording then.
What? No, ask the question now.
Wow.
Oh, well, okay. Well, you said we were going to go into more in depth later, but
okay, just ask questions.
So, is superior call, does that on the actual card, does it say superior call, or does it say like call from the deck, and then that is just considered?
No.
Yeah.
It never says superior call.
It never says superior. Yeah, it says it in like they say superior call in the anime, but it's just anytime you call a card that's not from your hand is a superior call.
So technically, this Gold Paladin starter deck is very superior call heavy then.
Oh yes, for sure it is.
As are most Gold Paladin decks, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I think one of the common or the early times that superior call came about was with Tsukiyami, where if you meet the conditions, you can search your deck, and it does count as a ride, but you get to accelerate moving up by calling a card out of your deck and putting it onto the Vanguard circle. We'll go in depth into superior calling and its wonders someday, maybe next week, since we're so desperate to talk about superior calling. But we've already been going for well over an hour, and we're supposed to be a half-hour podcast. So I'm going to close things out. Once again, I've been fiddling around with the iTunes feed a little bit, but it would really help if people can go into iTunes and give us a review, tell us what you think. Any feedback is appreciated, so just keep it honest and let us know what you'd like to hear from us or any changes you'd like to see to the program. We're still less than 10 episodes, so trying to figure out what we're doing here and hope that people are enjoying what we're doing so far. I'd like to say thank you to SBJ for all the help that he gives us every week and all the time, and to Nick Burgess for our intro and outro music. He's also given us some interstitial music, which I am probably not going to insert into this episode yet, but we'll be adding that down the line. All right, so if anybody wants to reach me, still available on Twitter at WashinTheSink, WashinTheSink. And Cole, you're at?
Cole McCune, COLE_MCCUNE.
I am at drive_Jack. And if anyone has any questions like about Gold Paladins, I have been playing them for a while. So if you want to just message me on Twitter, I should be able to help you if you have any questions.
All right. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, I should say, of the Drive Check podcast. Now off to the sunset we ride.
Question mark,
exclamation point.
I didn't know if he was actually going to say it. That's why I put that.